Hello, welcome to EVN Report. My name is Maria Titizian. Today in the studio, I have a very special guest. His name is Joe Kasabian. He's originally from Detroit. He is a best-selling author and a podcaster. We'll talk about that in a bit. Welcome to the program, Joe Kasabian.
Thank you for having me.
It was a very last-minute invitation because we found out that you're going to be leaving. So we said we got to grab you before you go. So I'm happy you did come just before your dinner out.
I'm glad I could run across Yerevan at the last moment. Honestly, I'm excited. I've never done anything like I've certainly never traveled 27 miles away from my house and done a podcast. So
well, there you go.
Yeah, or 27 hours rather, not miles.
Well, just a little bit about Joe for our listeners. He enlisted in the U.S. Army when he was 17 years of age, serving multiple tours in Afghanistan. And after his experience there, he wrote The Hooligans of Kandahar, which, as I said at the top, is a best-selling novel, winning multiple awards. And after leaving the military, he went on to complete his bachelor's. And now you are a graduate student studying genocide studies. And you also host a military history podcast called The Lions Led by Donkeys. And this is your first time in Armenia.
It is, yeah.
But I do know because I follow you on Twitter, and I know that you were very active during the 2020 Artsakh war, and you were trying to do many things to try and help the situation here. Let's start with the war, because that seems to be the constant theme with all of our podcasts these days, unfortunately. You know, you had never been to Armenia, didn't have a lot of connection, I think, growing up with the Armenian community in Michigan, if there was an Armenian community in Michigan. What was it that sort of spurred you or motivated you to become so active?
I mean, you're kind of right that I kind of came into my own understanding of my Armenian identity. My family wanted me to assimilate and be a good American, wasn't raised in the church, don't have an Armenian name other than my last name. So it was probably when I was in the military and I started meeting other Armenians. And of course, as soon as you meet an Armenian, they cross the room like, you're Armenian. And, we immediately become friends. So it was a slow process. And then it was accelerated by the war in 2020 because I've been paying attention to the Artsakh conflict since I started researching for my podcast because I've always wanted to talk about the Nagorno-Karabakh war. And I still haven't quite come to grips how exactly to do that. But it's always been on my mind, like how international powers are allowing this to continue. And then, the war started in 2020, and being hypercritical of the United States as I am, as anyone, in my opinion, who's been in the United States military should be, I saw, we're funding another one. The United States helps fund Azerbaijan, we fund Turkey. And that's when I realized, like, my taxpayer monies are killing my people. And I did everything I could. I tried to get over here. I don't have many skills, but I was a soldier. So I tried to get over here and fight, and that was sidelined. Now I understand more of how the Armenian government works. I should have just came anyway.
Right.
And I probably would have been okay. But thankfully, my fan base is dedicated to whatever I get obsessed with. And, I started trying to get more donations for the Armenia Fund, literally anything I could. And thankfully we raised a shocking amount of money, quite honestly.
In a very short amount of time.
Yeah. And, that's also when I realized that in the United States, nobody talks about us. Nobody talks about the war. And if they do, it's horribly stilted by Western journalists who just don't care about Armenians.
And don't understand either. I mean,
no, they don't want to understand, in my opinion. They want to tell us to watch our tone and don't offend someone. And, and for me, it's watching cluster bombs fall in Stepanakert. It was pretty offensive.
Right. And phosphorus munitions and
right, which is a war
munitions,
crime.
Of course.
Yeah. And so is purposely bombing civilians and destroying graves and cultural genocide and ethnic cleansing. But the whole world is just like, maybe we need to ask how Baku is feeling right now.
Right.
So it really infuriated me. And that's when I realized that I have a large platform I don't deserve, and I should use it to never shut up about the cause of Armenia. And because for most Americans, or Western English-speaking audiences, social media was the only place they were hearing about the war, and they were hearing what was happening. I mean, you could watch any normal news show in the United States, and you wouldn't see what was happening to the people of Artsakh at all. And if you did, it was like from the viewpoint of the Azeri Ministry of Defense or something. And it disgusted me.
Right. I always used to say, during the war, when we were getting reports and seeing video footage of the war crimes taking place, and that included beheadings, summary executions, that I said, if that was to happen in the middle of Europe or in Middle America, the whole world would be talking about it. And yet we had video evidence of these kinds of war crimes taking place. War is there's nobody better than you or people like you who have served in large militaries who understand that war is an ugly manifestation of the worst in humanity, probably. But even war has its rules. And every single, international humanitarian law, every kind of rule was being broken. We felt hopeless, but we also felt powerless and that's why everybody was sort of rushing to social media to try and get the word out. And yet we just felt we were speaking into the void and nobody was hearing us.
Yeah. And I know multiple Armenian journalists who are trying to get pieces published, and they were getting rejected because they're like, well, you can't really be unbiased on this issue. Please explain to me how I can be unbiased about war crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like in grad school, I'm studying genocide studies, and no one ever yells at a Holocaust scholar for like being too angry at Nazis,
Mm-hmm.
The truth isn't unbiased, in my opinion, because you can't be. There's no unbiased coverage in war. And that's why I think like Jake Hanrahan did a very good documentary, an ArtSoc, and he pointed that out very, very clearly. And most people don't see that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I decided I was just never going to shut up. And I've been called everything from toxic diaspora to troll to, I'm like, nobody would ever say this about like virtually anything else.
Right.
But, during the Darfur genocide, nobody yelled at activists about that.
Right. When everybody was yelling about it, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting that Armenians seem to fall into a unique place in the world where a Western journalist or whatever can come in with no real background anywhere and just tell us all to pipe down. We're overreacting when this is like our lives.
Well, and that Western journalist oftentimes came in with their security detail. They came in with their crew. They came in, they shot a few scenes, and then they left. Mm-hmm. They weren't living and feeling and breathing and experiencing the day-to-day sort of horror that the people of Artsakh and all of us were experiencing during the war. So they become these neutral observers. And again, I do stress that it is a disservice to the truth. And sometimes we feel like we're seen sort of as the backwater of humanity or some tribes. I mean, they just need to come to Armenia to see that, even in the chaos of post-war, in the disintegration of the sort of domestic political situation in the country, we were still able to hold free and fair elections. We still chose not to disintegrate into any kind of civil conflict. We chose to take part in a process because we do want to become part of that international community. And yet that is just sort of pushed to the side, and they just want to kind of see what they want to see.
Right. And that's always been, I mean, I should have known from, the global war on terror that nobody actually cares. Nobody cares about democracy or liberty or whatever. It's always mineral extraction, geopolitics. If anything, Armenia, 44 days was the frontline fight against the creeping of global fascism. And the international community decided to shrug their shoulders and say, we're actually fine with the creeping specter of fascism.
Well, they are fine through their silence. That's basically what's happening. You were baptized while you were here.
I was, yeah. I'm officially a member of the Armenian Church. And I am 10 years older than my godfather.
Well, that's a good thing. So this trip was, I'm assuming, why don't you tell us? I mean, was it to sort of reconnect, to find out, to contribute, to be baptized, to what?
I always felt like I was missing something. I never felt like I was a member of a community. As anybody who's lived in the U.S. can kind of know, our communities don't really exist. An American community is very detached. You don't know your neighbors. Nobody cares about one another when they walk by each other on the street. It's a highway surrounded by shopping malls. And I always felt like I was not a part of it. I mean, that intensified after 9/11. I lived around a lot of Muslims in Detroit and the greater Dearborn area, and just watching hate crimes being perpetrated against them. And then also me and my family, because racists are stupid. They don't even realize who the racist against. But I always felt like I was missing something. And I did plan to come here during a conference, which was canceled. And I decided I was just going to come anyway. on my own with no itinerary whatsoever.
And with your Twitter acquaintances.
Yes,
seems.
the entire trip was made by people I've met on Twitter.
So it is redeeming in some aspects.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's a double-edged sword. If it wasn't for it, I wouldn't have my career, and I wouldn't have met all of the amazing people I met here. Like, if I would have just done like a normal like birthright thing, which I aged out of, but or I would have done, I don't know, like tourist tours or something, I would have gone away with a very different understanding of Yerevan and Armenia as a whole. And I definitely came to connect with my culture, connect with, like, kind of come to terms with my identity. And it's only been solidified. This is legitimately one of the nicest places I've ever been in my life, surrounded by the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Even like out in random villages, we were stopping for gas. People were incredibly nice, even though my command of the Armenian language is very bad. But nobody seemed to care.
Right. Just want to quickly talk about your podcast, which is very, very popular. Tell me how that came about and how it's going. And the name, The Lions Led by Donkeys.
The name Lions Led by Donkeys comes from a saying from World War I, where soldiers were lions being led by incredibly incompetent generals who were donkeys. Now, I know it's a bit of a pop history, but I thought it was fun and a nice name for a show. And it's in every war that I've ever studied, that still tends to be true. It all started with a friend of mine and I watching bad history documentaries on YouTube and thinking, like, just laughing at how dumb they were. They were trapped in like myths and legends about like things like the competency of Confederate generals during the American Civil War, or how Hitler totally could have won World War II if just one thing different happened. And it just got more and more aggravating. And that's when I realized, like, wait, I also learned about this, like, almost this exact same stuff in school. So there's a lot of misconceptions about history. And I operate under the idea that human history is military history, as becoming more and more apparent around the world as we sit here. But, everything changes through force of arms, unfortunately. I wish we lived in a different society. So by studying labor history and human rights history and the history of cultures and colonialism and imperialism, like, you have to kind of look through it through the scope of armed conflict, and that's kind of how we started it. Granted, we don't take it seriously. We talk about very, very serious subjects and we give them the gravitas they deserve, but we also like to insult very stupid people from throughout history. We talk about the worst generals, like Luigi Cadorna. We just did one about the Battle of Sarikamish and how it led to the Armenian genocide. We've done an entire series on the Iran-Iraq War, Soviet-Afghan War, and it's how big it's gotten has kind of been mind-blowing. I have no idea why. I
think I know why. You're very articulate, very interesting, and you speak from a place of experience and not just something you read in a book, or you don't give yourself those kind of laurels. You've actually been in the trenches. To understand how to present that. And you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, all of human history is about conflict, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think it will continue to be that way. The Jeffersonian democracies of peace have kind of failed us. It's only led to war done by robots rather than conscripts for the most part. So.
Yeah, and we kind of experienced that with this last war,
right.
The war of drones, and how unprepared we were, and how now trying to figure out how do we rebuild the Armenian armed forces, our defense stock, our security issues that continue to plague Armenia as it's surrounded, on the one side by Azerbaijan and the other side by Turkey. So it's still a very, very tenuous and tense situation. But I think, I remember tweeting out during the war sort of to the diaspora to say that, your voices, your prayers, your fundraising, your support is really being heard in Armenia. And it's so important for the Armenians around the world to, come to Armenia for a visit, get baptized, and figure out what you want to do here, or never shutting up about, everything from the Armenian genocide to sort of the latest conflict that we had. So it is very important, and these conversations are important to have too. You can understand the people living here better. We can understand, because I think the diaspora was completely, it was mobilized, but everybody had such anxiety that I'd never seen before. We had the 4-day war back in April 2016. We've had many, smaller conflicts, but this was just on a different level.
I think we could all kind of tell it was different. And, since 2016, there was noted messages of extermination put out by various members of the Azeri government, which you just don't see in the 21st century.
Even now, he keeps doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, when someone tells you who they are, you should listen. And, that's when I realized that nobody cares. So we have to care. Or a lot of younger Armenians are looking to repatriate. But even if you're not, I mean, you're probably related to someone fighting. I mean, that's who we are.
Yeah. Being a small nation, there's no 6 degrees of separation at any
No.
moment. Yeah.
And, because we are all we have. And that if 2020 taught us anything, it should be we can't rely on anyone, because our best friends will sit back and do nothing. They'll probably pen a strongly worded letter or something. The UN will do nothing. NATO will do nothing. If somebody shows up like Russia, it'll be far too late. It's just shown that, we don't have anything that they want, so they don't care about our safety or health or basic human rights. So we will have to take and hold them, because we're going to have to keep fighting to earn them.
Right. Well, on that note, unity, solidarity, sort of depending on ourselves and empowering the Armenian state, the diaspora, so that we do continue to have our place in the world. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.